So it's been a couple weeks since Furina's been released, and so far Hoyoverse is almost certainly acting like Scrooge McDuck with how much money they've been making from her banner, just full on diving into their money bin, because people are just shoving their credit cards into their computers or phones or PlayStations, whatever it is you play this thing on. Not Nintendo Switch, because that's not a real port. But anyway, the point is, this character is selling really, really well, and that shouldn't come as a surprise because most of the Archon characters tend to sell really well. But I wanted to go ahead and take a look anyway at what makes Furina such a desirable and worthwhile pull, and potentially convince anyone who's on the fence about pulling for her in the last few days of her banner that it might be a good idea because, I don't know, look at her, she's adorable. Come on. Oh yeah, by the way, she's really busted and kind of trivializes half the game's content. If you care about that, you know. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by, no one. What, did you think I was going to say something like 2 people are going to watch this? Of course it's not sponsored. Jesus. Let's just get into the video. First, let's go ahead and take a look at this game's endgame content and how good Furina is in it. And by endgame content, I mean Spiral Abyss, because there is no other endgame content in this game. And people are definitely not bitter about that. At all. Definitely. Anyway, Furina is mostly an off-field damage dealer and buffer that'll just add a bunch of damage to your team, both through her personal damage and through the utility of her elemental burst. She can be fit onto most teams as long as the team either has a healer already or can potentially slot in a healer. The reason that she needs healing is because her elemental skill is going to drain the HP of your entire team in order to boost Furina's personal damage, because every time that she hits people with her weird little water Pokemon things, you do in fact lose some HP, but no, it's fine. She's not like a vampire or anything. You're not gonna like die or turn into an undead abomination. You're just gonna need like Kokomi or Baiju or something there to make sure you don't, pass out from blood loss. Now technically you can change Furina's skill to where it'll heal instead of do damage, but that's just such a massive damage loss that it's really not worth using unless you're in the overworld, or you just like using your charge attack to do costume changes, because, I don't know, it's cool that she has a costume change. I mean, look at this. It's cool. She's got the longer hair and the white highlights, and I'm getting lost in the weeds of this, aren't I? Anyway, her elemental burst is just a bunch of free damage. That is the simplest way to explain it. The less simple way to explain it is that as soon as you use her elemental burst, you start accumulating fanfare stacks every time your HP increases or decreases. This also increases the utility of having a lot of healing on the team, because if you've taken a bunch of damage from using Furina's skill, you then pop her burst and then pop a big heal, someone like Jean, you're going to gain a bunch of fanfare stacks immediately. These fanfare stacks directly translate into damage bonus for your entire team, including Furina's summons, meaning that her personal damage, along with the damage of whatever on-field character you're using, will increase dramatically. Both her first and second constellation, if you're like me and decided you needed multiple copies of this little idiot, buff the capabilities of her burst, making it more consistent and allowing you to get that damage boost even easier. You don't need to worry about her normal attacks at all unless you really want to get her to C6 and then use her as an on-field DPS, which you can, but you're a stronger man than me if you can actually bear to spend that much money on this stupid game. Or a weaker man? Probably weaker, actually. Or maybe you're just a gambling addict, I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. But hey, if you get C6, then yeah, you can go ahead and level up her normal attacks, but if you don't, and you're a sane person, you probably just need to level up her burst as well as her elemental skill, and you'll be clearing most of the game's content in no time. So what makes her so good is that since she's just a universal damage buffer instead of something that like buffs elemental mastery or buffs attack specifically, she's going to buff almost any kind of reaction or regular attack you're doing in the game outside of things like Bloom and Hyper Bloom. A character like Noelle that doesn't focus on elemental reactions at all is going to receive a massive damage buff from Furina, and so are characters that rely on Vape or like Melt or any other kind of reaction that is actually good because, you're not Geo. She's going to buff those too, once again, except for things like Bloom and Hyper Bloom, but those genuinely don't need any kind of buff because they're already really busted. So basically, Furina's going to be doing a lot for your team offensively, and as long as you have some kind of ability to heal yourself, you're going to be able to slot her into a lot of teams, and she's going to perform much better than a lot of other units in the role of buffing your team, as well as doing a bunch of off-field damage. Plus, Hydro application is always nice because Hydro's the best element in the game, because basically every friggin' element's best reaction involves Hydro. So it's kind of clear from the get-go that Furina is an incredibly meta-relevant unit that's going to be really good probably until the end of the game's lifespan, because unless they just produce another character that has such a large damage buff while also doing good damage, she's going to be incredibly relevant going forward. But that's not really the only reason to pull for her, because let's be honest, endgame content makes up a very small portion of the game's actual gameplay. She's also incredibly useful in the overworld, especially during Fontaine exploration, for a couple different reasons. For starters, being a Fontaine character, she has access to Numa or Ozha, which helps you with a lot of Fontaine puzzle mechanics. The buff that she has over a lot of them is that she has both Numa and Oja, meaning that she can basically do any puzzle in Fontaine by herself, which is very convenient. Also, did I mention, she's literally Jesus fucking Christ. She can actually just walk on water. Like, forever. Well, really, it's anytime her skill is active, but her skill has a longer, duration than cooldown, so literally she can just always walk on water. And it's really funny and really cool, and does actually work outside of the Fontaine water, so that's cool as well. She's very good for exploring Fontaine, and also, like I said before, if you're in the overworld and just dicking around, you can switch her skill to do healing in case you're just needing some health back in the overworld. So she's incredibly good both in what little high-end content we have in the game, as well as general overworld gameplay. But on top of that, I think she genuinely has one of the most interesting character arcs and character designs in the franchise up to this point. Without getting into any spoilers for the Archon quest or Furina's personal quest, I do highly recommend doing them because they're both very good. She's just a really good character. Maybe not appearing as much in the Archon quest earlier stages as some people would have liked, but she's very, very relevant when it comes to both the conclusion of the Archon quest as well as obviously playing a large role in her own personal quest because, duh, it's literally her personal quest. But I do think she's one of the best written characters in the game, and plus, look at her. She's got a fucking hat. Look at it. It's a hat. Zhongling doesn't have a hat. Zhongli doesn't have a hat. Hu Tao does have a hat. Damn it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that Furina is a well-designed character, both aesthetically and gameplay-wise. Her story and character arc are actually really good, and she's just a really busted unit in more ways than one. So in conclusion, should you pull for Furina? I mean, in the end, this is a game where you should really just pull for whatever character you want, because 90% of the content in the game is easy to clear with essentially any team comp, as long as you're not completely underleveled and you're, at least have some idea what an elemental reaction is. But if you're looking to just get the best units for clearing the best content the fastest, then Furina is absolutely a good pickup for you. Her damage buff and personal damage are going to help you clear Spiral Abyss incredibly quickly. If you're looking to explore Fontaine to 100% completion, then she's going to help you a lot with that, with both her passive that allows you to use the underwater abilities more frequently, her Numa and Oja application, and once again, being literally Jesus fucking Christ. And if you're just looking for a cute character to sit your teapot forever, then yeah, she's really good for that too. She's probably one of the best well-rounded units in the game up to this point that we've gotten, at least recently, and she's definitely one of the most worthwhile pulls that you could probably find as far as just value towards endgame content is concerned. Now, there will be a new Geo character released for the first time in like a century in the next patch, so maybe you'd rather hold out for Geo Taylor Swift. But like, come on, it's a Geo character. Let's be honest here. It's a Geo character. Anyway, yeah, this is the part where I have an outro, but I don't really have an outro, so just pull Furina, or you will face the death penalty. That's the outro. Yep.